Hello, Movie Crusaders, and welcome to the latest episode of the Weekend Crusaders, episode 18. Our show can go to a strip club now and not get carded. Woo!
Oh, I remember when I used to get carded. Such a long time ago.
I still get carded.
Not at strip clubs, mind you, but
I still get carded. But anyway, welcome to the latest episode of the Weekend Crusaders. My name is Sean Wasserkrug. With me, as always, is Brian Never Gets Carded Michaels. Today we got 5 new movies to talk about that come out on this weekend of May 7th through May 9th. Happy birthday to me. It was yesterday. So, yeah.
happy birthday, Sean.
Thank you. You forgot, you dick.
Because we're recording this hasn't happened yet.
The future is calling you a dick. Just get used to it. But anyway, we got 5 fun movies to talk about. Well, not all of them are fun, but we definitely going to have some fun talking about these movies. But we're going to start with a fun one. We're going to start with my pick. Now, there's some firsts going on this episode. This wasn't originally my pick. This was the Revisited, and halfway through the week, we swapped it.
I didn't know you were going to reveal that. Okay.
Oh, yeah, we're going to reveal it. You know me. We ain't going to hide anything from the people that actually watch this show. This was the Revisited film, and then we were watching my pick, and I'm like, I don't want this to be my pick anymore. It's like, okay, we'll make that the Revisited. And
We're in the middle of the movie, and Sean's like, you tell us, Sean's like, oh, man, this isn't like I remember it. And I'm like, and I suggested, like, you could just move it. He's like, I'm going to do that.
Exactly. I was like, so here's a spoiler, guys. We have 2 stinkers this week. But that is not this movie. This movie is my pick, was formerly, like Prince, the Revisited. We are talking about 1999's action film, The Mummy. The Mummy came out May 7th, 1999, had a budget of $80 million, had a weekend opening of $43.36 million. It was number 1 its opening weekend and spent 2 weeks at the number 1 spot, had a finished box office of $415.93 million, $155.38 million domestic, and $260.54 million international. Now, some people around me, and you know these people, have said that The Mummy is better than Indiana Jones. I'm not agreeing with that. I'm not agreeing with that, but it's too funny not to say that. Some people might throw stuff when they hear that comment, but The Mummy, I love The Mummy. I definitely love the first Mummy. And speaking of, we literally were talking about The Mummy last week with Furry Vengeance on, you were Rick O'Connell, Brendan Fraser. What happened to you?
Today we get to remember when.
Today we actually get to go, you remember when Brendan Fraser was awesome? Well, here's that movie. Not only is Brendan Fraser awesome, but Rachel Weisz. I mean, Rachel Weisz is gorgeous, but I mean, this was my first introduction to Rachel Weisz, was this film. And then to me, one of the unsung heroes of this franchise is John Hannah. I love John Hannah, and if anyone who's ever watched Spartacus, the TV series, not the movie, the TV series on Starz, John Hannah is flipping amazing on that show. And once again, this was my introduction to John Hannah, was The Mummy. I really, really enjoy this film. I have a blast watching it every time I watch this film. It's funny. It's got good action. It's got a good story. I actually know how to say Anaxinamun and not mess it up, which a lot of people know I'm really bad with names, but I know how to say that name. And then it had I would say an okay sequel, but it had the problem of we had a kid actor that no one really liked and to add horrible CGI for The Rock. And then we had an abysmal third one that we may talk about on the show. We haven't decided yet, but there's a good chance we are probably going to be talking about that third one on here. And it's
as our featured film?
Hell no. You know it's going to be the stinker. Fucking Yetis. Anyway, Brian, what are your thoughts on The Mummy? I know you're not as high on The Mummy as I am, but what are your thoughts on The Mummy?
You know, when The Mummy was coming out, I was like, okay, it'd be, kind of, give us another shot at these classic monsters kind of thing. I'm all for it. And it came out and it was totally not what I expected, because it's not a horror film, not even in the like old classic Universal Monsters idea of horror film. This is an adventure film. it just has supernatural elements involving the mummy and things like that. So I mean, this is a movie that clearly was looking to be. It was basically trying to be an Indiana Jones knockoff. Now,
it's basically modern day Indiana Jones, where Indy is split between two characters. Rick is the action side of Indy, and Evie is the
academic. Yeah,
exactly.
So it was definitely trying to. I don't want to say knockoff. It was trying to be a movie in the vein of Indiana Jones films.
I would say out of respect,
but definitely with more of a sillier side to it, a little bit of cheese to it. I don't consider that a bad thing. Brendan Fraser, yes. I mean, I've liked him since Encino Man. I mean, he's still his best role. I don't care about Mummy.
Oh, Airheads.
Airheads is a close number 2.
Like, don't knock Airheads.
But, I like Brendan Fraser, Rachel Weisz, of course. I think actually one of the unsung heroes of this movie is Oded Fehr, who I love him. There's this thing we used, for some reason, I don't remember why, me and my friends, even my wife, we always used to refer to him as Oded Fehr, kick-ass servant of God. I don't remember where it started, but it was just cool because it was just like he was just this cool character in this movie.
You had to say the full name like that.
You had anytime you said his name or he showed up in a TV show or something, like Oded Fehr, kick-ass servant of God. I don't know where it started.
I don't hate that. I don't hate that at all.
Yes, it's cheesy. The effects don't really hold up. I mean, this is 1999, but then you got to think, you compare it to other movies around the same time, and I mean, it's not going to make or break the movie. I still enjoy the movie, but I'm just saying some of the effects don't quite hold up.
I think the sand scene worked really well, and
there are definitely parts that do. There are just parts that don't. There are parts that aren't as strong. The sequel I did not really like. I mean, it's not like one of the worst movies of all time. The third one I barely remember because I think I saw it once and like, okay, don't ever need to watch that again.
I mean, once you recasted Rachel Weisz to Maria Bello, nothing against Maria Bello, but she's no Evie.
And then as much as I hate the kid actor, all of a sudden in the third movie he's like 20 years old or something like that.
Oh yeah, he's like, they basically were like, we can't keep this kid around anymore. Let's make him at least a teenager.
Even they're like, okay, this kid's annoying. Let's move on.
Yeah.
But I mean, they added Jet Li, and you thought, oh, that could work. No, it didn't help. But as far as the original film, I enjoyed it, actually. I remember this summer, this is like the year everybody was anticipating what is about a month after this, you can get Phantom Menace. And so
you had Matrix. Everyone was riding high off Matrix.
Yeah, you run high off Matrix.
And everyone was
you weren't at Phantom Menace yet.
Yeah.
And so this movie came out, and people are gonna be like, okay, whatever, we'll go see a movie in between while we're waiting for the other thing to open. We've seen Matrix 5 times. And we saw this, and this is actually very good. I remember seeing this a couple different times in the theaters before it left, and I enjoyed it. I don't love it as much as a lot of people, especially certain people who have very wrong opinions about this versus Indiana Jones. Jacoby, I'm going to call you out. But yeah, it's a fun movie.
Speaking of Jacoby, congratulations on your wedding, because I know he said he was gonna. I told him that we were gonna talk about The Mummy, and he was like, "I'll have to watch it after I get married on Saturday." So he actually gets married tomorrow. So
this is news to me. So congratulations.
He's your partner, and you don't remember.
He doesn't talk to me. He was my partner, and he abandoned me. That's
so outside baseball. What people are like, who the hell are you talking about? But anyway, yeah. I mean, there's just so many. I'm not gonna say iconic because that's totally not the right word I want to use. But there's so many fun moments. I mean, anyone. Hey Rick, we got all the horses. Betty, you're on the wrong side of the river.
I literally, anytime I am at a river, like my kids and I are going for a hike and they go across the bridge to the other side, every time I will yell that to them. And every time they look at me like, oh, God damn.
It's also got its own, like, Indiana Jones moment, I think, as well. Like, where Evie and Rick are up against, like, a wall, and Imhotep's coming near him, and he screams, and Rick just goes, ah!
Screams back at him, yeah.
It's a great moment. Like, this was the movie, like, because like I said, Brendan Fraser, we knew him as Encino Man and Airheads, and, just kind of comedies. Blast from the Past, obviously we spoke about that movie previously. And then he just came out with this, and it's just like, wow, he can be, like, a leading action star. I mean, hell, they basically took this film and turned it into a video game, Uncharted. Because Nathan Drake is basically a Brendan Fraser-like character, even though Nathan Fillion is the perfect person to play that role. And now we're getting ready to have a movie of that. And, spawned 4 fantastic video games. But that's basically what The Mummy is. It's Uncharted. Except, the video game does it better. But Brendan Fraser, I think, found this groove, and he like found this lane, and he was killing it, but he didn't capitalize on it. Like he stuck with the Mummy, and then he just didn't really branch out and do more. He's kept doing the comedies like Bedazzled and Monkey Bone and Furry Vengeance, even though that was 10 years later. But still, it's just like he could have became huge based off of this film, and he just kind of, I don't want to say got lazy, but he just made wrong decision choice where Rachel Weisz took this and ran with it. She just started making right decision. And now, when people say Rachel Weisz, it's like, oh, wow, amazing. I mean, she got Oscar noms now, or at least one. And John Hannah, I think he went from a relative nobody to being casted as, to me, one of the better villains on TV in Spartacus. Granted, it was quite a few years later, but and then the actor who plays Emotep, when I saw him, when I saw him jump on 24, I was like, Emotep, yes! I was like, I've been waiting to see him pop up somewhere, and he was only on it for like an episode or two, but still. But I was happy to see him. But I mean, there's, like I said, there's fun moments. There's, like I said, and then you got Odair Fair, who I think ended up going on to like Deuce Bigalow.
He didn't have a big movie career. He started showing up on some TV series and stuff. He was in the Resident Evil, a few of the Resident Evil movies.
Yeah,
but I'm not saying that's a great career move, but I still like him, even if
Resident Evil movies are not good movies.
Yeah,
I will die on that hill with probably a billion other people. But anyway, the Mummy is, like I said, it's a lot of fun. And what more can you ask? The movie takes itself seriously, but it doesn't take itself seriously at the exact same time. And I think it was just kind of like this lightning in a bottle. I don't think it was expected to be nearly as good. Or as
it wasn't. That's why they released it between The Matrix and Star Wars, because they're like, oh, we're just going to put this out.
And it launched a franchise.
Yeah,
I mean, it did. And it launched certain people's careers. And like I said, every time it's on TV, I stop and I watch it. So like watching it, this time around, it was just like, it was kind of like not like a warm hug. It was kind of like hanging out with an old buddy, because you see, I've seen The Mummy way too many times than I would like to admit. But yeah, it's just a fun movie. If you haven't seen The Mummy, like, then you must not like fun action films, because that's what The Mummy is. It's a fun action film. But yeah, it's I don't think it's on anything right now, is it?
HBO Max.
It is on HBO Max.
Yeah.
Oh god, all three of them probably.
That I don't know, but
if the first Mummy is, then the other two probably are.
Probably, unless they're on their license like under some Netflix or somebody else, then they'll be on HBO Max. Yeah.
Exactly. So I mean, if you guys have never seen The Mummy, then at least watch the first one, because the first one to me is great. If you haven't seen The Mummy in a long time and you're a fan of The Mummy, give it a watch. Go back to 1999. Enjoy.
It's still fun.
It's still a fun watch, and like I said, it still holds up.
It's really the definition of a popcorn movie, because I mean, you can't think too hard about the movie. It's just fun to watch. I mean, there's like, I have nitpicks about the movie. Like the only one I want to address, because I've always had a problem with this, is like when they put I guess it's Imhotep, when they put him in the sarcophagus and they put all those bugs in there with him because they're going to eat it, digest him over 10,000 years or 100 years or whatever it is, and yet later on those bugs are out and they like run over people and instantly devour them and leave bones. It's like, well, which is it? You can't have it both ways.
I mean, maybe he got the anorexic ones who didn't want to eat that much.
Maybe. No. Like I said, but that was just an example of like, yeah, you can't think too much about this movie. It's nitpicky, but if you just turn off your brain, you'll enjoy it. It's fun.
Yeah, it's a summer blockbuster. I mean, it wasn't supposed to be a blockbuster, but it became a blockbuster. But yeah, check out The Mummy. I don't think you guys will be disappointed in it. It's definitely a fun watch. And like I said, watch Brendan Fraser. If you guys watch Doom Patrol, you're like, Brendan Fraser's fucking great in Doom Patrol. What else is he good in? And you haven't seen The Mummy, check The Mummy out.
Or if you didn't listen to us last week and you went out and watched Furry Vengeance, you can cleanse your palate with this one.
Shame on you, first off. So Stephen Sommers, right? Stephen Sommers,
the director.
So speaking of that, we have another first on the show. We're going from one movie directed by Stephen Sommers, widely, I would say, loved for the most part, to another movie directed by Stephen Sommers that is not well thought of. And this was originally my pick, and is now the revisited
Sadly,
pick.
there are a lot of people who actually do enjoy this movie, and I don't get it. But okay.
But let's just say, I thought I enjoyed this movie. I remember thinking I liked this movie, and then I watched it, and I was like, oh god, I don't want this to be my movie anymore. I don't want people to think that I am like a horrible movie watcher. Granted, I've picked some pretty bad films. What was it, Butterfly Effect? I was like, oh my god, this is horrible, and I just kind of took it. But what did you just say?
I still liked it.
Oh, I think you said something else. Anyway, I was about to get mad. Anyway, the revisited film. This was actually, I think, the last movie I saw when I worked at the movie theater. I remember this like the last Friday I ever worked was when this came out.
And it made you quit?
No,
I can't believe I watched that. I'm out of here.
Yeah, this movie didn't make me quit. But I remember the last film that I worked the weekend for. It was this week, Van Helsing in 2004. Came out May 7th, 2004. Had a budget of 160 million, twice as much as The Mummy. Had a weekend opening of 51.74 million. Number one, its opening weekend. Its only week at number one. Shocking. Had a finished box office of 300.15 million, 120.17 million domestic, and 179.98 million international. This movie shouldn't have been what it was.
Made?
I mean, like, at what?
Shouldn't have been made.
No, but I'm saying it's like it. You have Hugh Jackman coming off of X2.
Yeah, he done
literally last week. X2 last week. He's riding high off of Wolverine. Well, no, we talked about it last week, but it was like the year prior. But still, he's Hugh Jackman. He's Wolverine. He's had 2 Wolverines under his belt at this point. He's
clearly looking for another franchise.
Exactly, because he knows Last Stand, which granted Last Stand didn't come out until 2006. He knows he's not going to be Wolverine forever, which he actually was Wolverine for way longer than I think he intended. But he was looking for something new. And you got Kate Beckinsale, who's coming off of Underworld. You know, it's like, and then you, once again, we talked about The Mummy. We're back in the monsters again. I don't think we planned that. But still, you have a director who did great with The Mummy. Let's give him Frankenstein, Dracula, and the Wolfman, and Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, basically pretty much the rest of the Universals, and give him Hugh Jackman. And boom, we get Van Helsing. And I think you described it this way: give him a medium-sized budget, and he does The Mummy. Give him an overly bloated budget like this, and we get Van Helsing. Which, it's not good. Brian, what are your thoughts on Van Helsing? Obviously, we know you don't like it, but go in a little further.
So I like Hugh Jackman. At the time, I liked Hugh Jackman. I mean, not only from X-Men, but I mean, I at that point watched him in things. He was doing like romantic comedies. Like there was one called Someone Like You. I liked him in some other films.
Before this,
I think that was after this. I'm not sure about that. But I'd seen him in other movies besides X-Men too, and I actually enjoyed him. So I liked him. Kate Beckinsale, I like both as an actress and just to look at because she's a gorgeous woman. Stephen Sommers, like you said, he had done the first 2 Mummies, which the second one, like I said, was disappointing. But thought maybe this will be he didn't do as good as Mummy Returns, but he's starting a new franchise of Van Helsing. Maybe it'll be good again like the first Mummy. I did not like this movie at all. First of all, Hugh Jackman and Kate Beckinsale both I thought did fine with what they had.
They have no chemistry. They have no chemistry in this movie.
Most of the problem is the script, the direction, the special effects are awful in this movie. I mean, some of the special effects in this movie make the Scorpion King in Mummy Returns look good. I mean, there's a lot of
mainly the werewolf. The werewolves look horrible in this.
Yeah. There's the all the characters. Every single character in this movie at some point is basically playing Spider-Man. They got super agility, or swinging and jumping off walls and things like this. Even Frankenstein, this big bulky dude, is at one point swinging around like Spider-Man. Speaking of Frankenstein, Frankenstein was played by Shuler Hensley, who was another Australian stage actor who actually worked with Hugh Jackman back when he was doing theater and doing musicals like Oklahoma. And you could tell because this guy thought he was in a stage production, because every time he delivered a line, he was saying it with a weird voice and almost like singing his lines. I'm like, dude, shut up. It's like, you're not on the stage.
So annoying.
You don't fit this movie at all. Yeah, like there's Richard Roxburgh as maybe the worst Dracula put to film.
That is one thing. Hold on, there's one thing too. There's one scene. I think it's with Beckinsale's brother, and it was bugging me. The audio doesn't match his mouth through that entire scene at all. Like it felt like they had a hard time trying to get him to like speak with the Dracula accent. But continue.
Yeah, well, my problem with him was more, first of all, the character was really bad in this movie, but also the fact that I know him from Moulin Rouge is very distracting because like that's all I can picture is him as the I believe the Count from Moulin Rouge. There's all kinds of just stupid plot points and things. I mean, there's like at one point he's sitting there shooting like this automatic crossbow, which is stupid as shit. I don't.
I mean, it's not as bad as
Talk about another movie that has a similar weapon later on in the year, but but anyway, he's shooting this thing, and he's like, "It's not working, and then his assistant, whatever I call him, David Wenham, is like, "You have to aim for the heart. You're Van Helsing. You hunt vampires. You don't know you have to aim for the heart."
They do say in the movie that he had never hunted vampires up to that point. This was his first interaction with vampires.
Okay.
They do say that. They do say that.
But apparently he's hunting that. You'd think they'd tell him that.
But there's one point in that scene that like literally like Beckinsale's running and they're chasing and he's shooting at them, chasing her, and they're like all these spikes are like winging back, like he's gonna hit her.
Yeah.
It's like God.
It's like at one point, it's carrying her and swinging back and forth. He's still shooting at it like crazy. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Like I was like, I mean, obviously, it's a movie. He's not gonna hit her, but still, it's just like. I would be like pissed off at him. Like she's running at one point, and I could count like 30 of these things wing past her face. I was like, dude, you are a horrible. And then he's like, he turns off the automatic, and then instantly gets a perfect shot. It's like, no, come on.
Yeah, but there's things like that, and then like I already talked about the effects, but especially like Hyde. I guess you want Jekyll and Hyde.
Oh yeah, basically the opening scene for the most.
Yeah, the effects there were awful. I mean, this whole movie actually is a poster child for why people hate CGI in movies. CG can be used very good. It can be excellent in movies, and then there's movies like this that really just should have gone practical effects or something because it looks horrible and it takes you out of every scene, and it's just. Oh.
You know what it kind of reminded me of?
What's
The
that?
Extraordinary Gentleman.
Very much so. Yeah. And that one was equally horrible, in my opinion. I don't know. But the problem is, even without the CG, when they were doing in a few scenes when they do like wire work instead, it was like really bad, obvious wire work. Like you can practically see them like swinging around, and then also it switches to CGI as they fly away.
Yeah, they're basically trapeze artists.
Yeah, or when they do like flips, and you could see them like trying to go inside so they don't like hit the wires that are holding them up as they're flipping and stuff. But
and then like, I mean, not to spoil the end, but it's like Kate Beckinsale takes so much abuse throughout this whole film, and then like the end point we get is like that wasn't that bad.
Look, what 17 years we can spoil the end. I don't care.
Okay, cool.
So Kate Beckinsale,
yeah, she's getting her ass kicked for most.
So Hugh Jackman has become this werewolf. Okay? And there's the whole big battle going on. And then Kate Beckinsale comes in, and the werewolf basically tackles her. Doesn't maul her, doesn't slice her open, nothing. Just tackles her to the ground. And then next thing you know, you see her, and she's dead. And we're like, and I actually had to back it up. I'm like, wait, what did I miss? How did she die? I'm like, why did she die? I still can't figure out how she died.
Yeah, she's getting thrown through shit with the female vampire.
Oh, she had taken so much worse abuse the entire movie.
Oh, the whole movie. Like, she gets dropped by them. She's totally fine running around, but then she gets landed on by Hugh Jackman's werewolf, which I still say that they only made him a werewolf in this just so he can do the Wolverine growl. I was like, you just had to get the Wolverine in there. I'm not mad at it, but just don't lie to me and like tell me that that's not what you wanted.
Right.
But
the only thing, but at least her character got to become Mufasa apparently because she face appears in the clouds looking down at Hugh Jackman at the end.
It's like he does like the whole like Viking funeral or anyone who watches Supernatural, the hunter funeral, and like you see her like her ashes or her soul essence, whatever you want to call it, like stand up right in front of Hugh Jackman, and then it looks like it goes through him and it goes up into the clouds, and then Mufasa's with her and her family and shit at the end. And that's how the movie ends. And it's just like, okay. But it's just like, that's the thing too, is just like this movie, oh my God, it's so boring.
That's just I
So
knew
boring.
when Sean picked this as his pick because he liked it so much.
I
Or he thought he liked it so much.
I remember Hugh Jackman, Kate Beckinsale, monsters. Why didn't I like this? I had to have liked this. Let's pick it so I can watch it again.
I went into it wanting to like it too, but I knew coming out that I didn't. And so when he said that, I'm like, fine. I don't even know if I ever watched. I think I watched it a second time at some point, but I don't know. But I was like, you know what? I'll give it another shot. You know, sometimes you're in a bad mood and you watch something, you go back, you watch it, you enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I went into this within the first 10 minutes. I'm like, yeah, no, my opinion's not going to change. So
Yeah. I mean, like when mainly the main villain of this film isn't Dracula, it's his brides. Because it's the bride, and they're so poorly acted. They're not
poorly acted, and then they're constantly switching into these bat creatures who, of course, were nippleless apparently because it's a PG-13 movie.
Yeah, exactly. It's like no, but then like when they turn back to human, they're already wearing clothes.
Yeah, it's like even Hugh Jackman turned into a wolf. Like when the people turn into wolves in this movie, their skin rips off and the wolf comes out of them, but their pants are still on, at least just enough to cover them there.
Yeah, it's just like but no, it's just, and then like once they throw Frankenstein in at the end, you're just like, oh my God, just end this fucking movie.
The thing about this movie, this movie thinks it's so exciting. Every single one of these action set pieces, like, you know, oh, we're putting on this big spectacle, and we were just bored by it. I'm sitting to watch this movie just going.
Not the opening sequence, but the opening sequence where Van Helsing shows up to Transylvania and the three brides show up. That is like a 10-15 minute long action.
Goes on and on.
And it is boring as hell. And then we just get a lot of talking, and then we get I think they go to wherever Dracula is, and you have like, was it like another 5-10 minute long conversation between him and Van Helsing while Kate's up there with her brother. And it's like, this feels like the third act, but it's not the third act.
Yeah, I remember I texted you. I'm like, oh, I thought this was getting to a finale. It felt like a finale, but I'm only halfway through the movie.
I was like, no, because we still have the whole ballroom scene left to go.
Yeah.
But it's like, you're watching this, and like at the time, I wasn't paying attention. I didn't realize that this was Stephen Sommers. And as I was watching, I was like, there's a lot of scenes here that remind me of The Mummy. Yeah. And you were like, yeah, it's the same director. And I'm like, oh shit. Because there's like the part of the ballroom when Dracula goes, Van Helsing, and everyone goes, it's like, that's like when the Mummy is looking up at Rick and everyone, and like the whole town has turned like into zombies. It's like, yeah. I was like, oh man, like he's actually taking legitimate scenes out of the Mummy and putting it in this film.
Yeah, he was trying to recapture that magic, and it didn't happen. Yeah, same director. You got Kevin J. O'Connor, who's in all of Stephen Sommers' movies almost.
Yeah, Benny from the Mummy.
He would have been fine for Igor, except for this really bad
why
makeup.
His face all why? You could have just had him have a regular face.
He would have fine Igor without this bad makeup.
Where you literally can't show any emotion because it's like paste or like silly putty on his face.
And even when he's trying to talk, it's like he can't even talk.
but then we get the Mortal Kombat Annihilation finale where we get we can't get Hugh Jackman who's done fight scenes against whatever the actor's name is who plays Dracula. No, we get CGI werewolf versus CGI bat, which is basically Mortal Kombat Annihilation with dragon and other dragons. And it's just like, I mean, granted, it looks better than Mortal Kombat Annihilation, but it's still not good.
That's not much.
It's like, it's not good. But yeah, like, and then David Wenham, it's like, he's supposed to be the comedic relief. And it's like, look, dude, I love you in Lord of the Rings and 300, but you're not really that funny of a guy. And like, you find out that he's just a hornball. Like, you're not supposed to do that. You're a monk. I'm actually a friar. And like, what was it? He saves the one girl. She's like, is there anything I can do to repay you? And he literally has her like have sex with him.
Yeah.
Okay.
David Wenham is another one who I thought he did the best of what he could. I mean, I don't blame him for his role.
He was the John Hannah of the film. He was John Hannah in this movie.
But it was just really way worse written for him to do. So.
Yeah, it's just mind-numbingly long and felt just unnecessary. And I'm sorry,
like 2 hours and 15 minutes or something like that.
You know what's funny? You know what I watched? Was it yesterday? It was yesterday or it was 2 days. I think it was Sunday. Monster Squad. And I'm like, this does the whole Universal Monster dynamic 1,000 times better. That's an 80s film, and it makes sense. And like, you got kids doing it.
Co-written by Shane Black.
Yeah, which I think we probably will be talking about Monster Squad at some point on the show. But and then you watch Van Helsing, and it's almost 20 years later, and with a budget. You know,
that's the problem with this movie. It had a budget and it had special effects, and it leaned so heavily on that, and that was the wrong way to go with it because
like look at the Mummy.
It became
Mummy
this boring mess of CG.
Yeah, Mummy was made with half the budget, and it made us care about the characters. We cared about Rick. We cared about Evie. We cared about wow, I am blanking on John Hannah's brother character.
I don't remember his character's name.
Why do I think it's John? Might be John also. I'm blanking on it. But and Odo Fair, we cared about those characters. We even cared about Emotep to a point. But it's like, I didn't give a... Like, you don't care about Van Helsing. You care about Hugh Jackman. You don't care about Anna. You care about Kate Beckinsale. And you definitely don't
John
care...
Hannah's name was Jonathan, just so you know.
Yeah, so I thought it was John.
Yeah.
I could have sworn it was John. But yeah, I was like, you don't care about any of these characters. Like, when they kill Kate Beckinsale at the end of the film, you're not like, oh, no. You're just like, what? Why?
We don't care there either because we're like, what? She's not dead, right?
Which wasn't the whole mission for Van Helsing was to make sure her bloodline doesn't die?
I guess, I don't know.
And then
this is one of those movies where I was like, I don't really know what's going on. I don't care.
I'm pretty sure he goes to Transylvania to make sure she does not die. That's his mission. It's not to go hunt Dracula. It's to make sure she doesn't die. And he failed. He kills her at the end of the movie. And then he rides off into the sunset with David Wenham and just like, da-da-da-da-da. It's like, movie's over. It's like,
off to the next adventure.
Exactly. That we never got.
Thank God they used up all the monsters in that movie so they wouldn't try to make a second one.
Oh, well, I mean, they still had the creature from the Black Lagoon.
You make a whole movie about that? Oh, good Lord.
I mean, they did, but not with a Van Helsing.
And it wasn't good.
And he was good in Monster Squad.
He was good in Monster Squad.
Good in Monster Squad. But yeah, Van Helsing. Brian, I'm sorry I made you watch it again.
Yeah.
Sorry. I remember like how could I have not liked this movie? Like, it's got everything that I would want in a movie to be liked. And I was watching, I was like, wow, I'm like having a hard time just trying to focus and pay attention to this. It is not fun. It is not good at all. Is it on any streaming services? I had the DVD, so
no, it's not for free anywhere. No.
Yeah, so even though it's got Hugh Jackman, Kate Beckinsale, don't watch it. It's dull as hell. It's god, it was like over 2 hours long.
And if you think you remember liking it, you're wrong. Take Sean's word for it.
Like me, I thought I liked it. I was wrong. I was really, really wrong. So now we're going to move on to a film that Brian picked that I went, oh, I remember this from a child. And it is a film. I would say this. When I was a kid, there were 3 movies based off of this topic that I remember, which is Presidents. There's this movie, American President, which my mom had on repeat for like ever. Like, I don't think I've ever watched American President from beginning to end, but I remember that Michael J. Fox, Michael Douglas, and Annette Bening. Is it Annette Bening?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, that movie, and I've seen the ending of that speech like 1,000 times because of my mom. And then Air Force One. Yeah, those
Yeah, that was a little bit different than the other two, but okay. Yeah.
But it's like if there was a president movie on, and then you would have also technically Independence Day, because I mean, Bill.
Well, you got that speech, if nothing else. Yeah,
it's the best. But then there's this one, and like I said, this one is not like the rest, clearly, but it's still a delightful film, and that is the 1993. I would say comedy. Would you say
it's a comedy?
It's a comedy.
Absolutely comedy.
Dave. Dave came out May 7th, 1993, had a budget of $28 million, and for a first time ever on the Weekend Crusaders, had a weekend opening of $7.3 million, which was number 2 its opening weekend behind Dragon, the Bruce Lee story in its first week, but then the following week became the #1 movie. In its second weekend, first time on Weekend Shares, we've had a movie not start #1 and then become #1, but it was its only weekend #1. But still, word of mouth is what made that movie #1 and had a finished box office of $63.27 million. I think Brian and I have been pretty vocal on the show that we both really, really, really love Kevin Kline. And so naturally, you put Kevin Kline in a role where he's playing double duty, which he does a lot.
Again, yeah.
And you put him in this just kind of a delightful character situation, and you add like Sigourney Weaver in as well, and you also got I'm only got his name, Kevin Dunn. Is it Kevin Dunn?
Kevin Dunn.
Yeah, Kevin Dunn, Ben Kingsley, Ving Rhames with hair, which was freaking me out to no end. Because the first time I saw him, I was like, why does this guy look familiar? Because he wasn't talking yet. And then he started talking. I was like, oh my god, this is Ving Rhames with hair. And I immediately texted Brian, I was like, he's freaking me out. And that's the response I got was you laughing. Frank Langella. Was it like
always the bad
Lauren
guy, of course?
Yeah, Lauren Linney's got like 2-3 scenes in this, where she's like
there were several people in this movie that like this is kind of before they like became famous. They kind of Laura Linney, Bonnie Hunt, Ving Rhames. There's somebody else who I know.
But Ving Rhames is like a normal character in the film. Like Bonnie Hunt's got a scene, and Laura
because she hadn't really done anything before. This is before Jumanji. This is before Cars. Before
Mad About You.
Mad About You had been on at this point, but not long. I don't think. No,
wait.
If it happened on, it would just start.
Hunt. That's Helen Hunt, not Bonnie. Wow, we totally went with the wrong Hunt.
No, I knew Bonnie Hunt was. I was thinking, was she a supporting character on that I'm forgetting about?
No, I full on went with Helen Hunt.
You're trying to throw me there.
I did. I went with the wrong Hunt.
But there was a lot of people in here who hadn't kind of become stars yet. But
this is your movie, Brian.
Yeah.
Dave.
Basic plot of the movie is Kevin Kline plays the president, but he also plays this guy who basically works just in his community trying to help people get jobs. He's just a good guy trying to help people out, and he also is like a presidential impersonator. He shows up at like car dealerships and things like this, like pretending to be the president because he looks like him. So the president has a stroke. And they hire him to be a double to stand in for the president for supposedly security situations, like going from a building to a car, that kind of thing. Yeah, the president has a stroke, and so they ask him to fill in full time for the president because they don't want to pass it on to the vice president because the chief of staff and them want to keep control. That's the basic plot of the movie. Of course, he's trying not to be discovered. He realizes how he can do good on the presidential level. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, delightful. You use the word delightful. I think that's a perfect description for this movie because I pick some weird movies for you to watch sometimes. A little bit. But then there's other movies.
Actually got 2 in a row.
But then there's other movies like Indian Summer and this, which are just delightful, just light, fun movies. It's like comfort food. This is just kind of an old style comedy. There's some romantic comedy in it. There's some political comedy in it. There's some straight up comedy in it. It's directed by Ivan Reitman. So of course he's got, good pedigree with everything he's done. Jason Reitman, his son and director, plays vice president's son, I believe, in the movie. He shows up somewhere in here, bit part. You wouldn't even know if you didn't watch the credits.
Oh, okay. I don't remember him in the movie.
I was saying, director Jason Reitman is in this movie. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of a feel-good comedy, and I miss Kevin Kline. I watched this. I'm like, man, I wish he still acted more at all, but also acted more in these comedies because I used to really love him as a comedic actor. And Sigourney Weaver doesn't get enough credit either. And she's known for Aliens and these things like this, but she's done a lot. I mean, she's like this one and
Galaxy Quest.
There was something else I had in mind when I was originally going to talk about it, but anyway, I think she does a lot of good, comedic roles as well. That's going to bug me. Of course, Ghostbusters. Anyway. But I mean, I don't really have a whole lot to say about this movie. It's just one of those movies. It's kind of a feel-good thing. It's not gonna, change your life or anything. But if you're looking for something to just sit down and enjoy, like a little comfort food, this totally fits the bill because I enjoy the hell out of it.
And a lot of that is just because of how charming and charismatic Kevin Kline is.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's like that in everything. Like we said, you know, in Chaplin when we talked about him, and then with Fierce Creatures.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's just a charming dude that you can watch and just like. And in Fierce Creatures, he's a dick.
Yeah.
We still watch him.
And he's really such a talented actor. I mean, people forget. I mean, first of all, he's won an Academy Award for in a comedy, which you don't see a lot of acting performers that win Academy Awards in comedy. He won one for Fish Called Wanda, deservedly so.
He's fantastic.
But even in here, I mean, it's good because he plays the president and he plays this impersonator. But when he plays the impersonator playing the president, he plays it just off enough. So it's not a perfect, you know, he's not playing his president role again. He's playing it like just off enough so you know it's not really him. And it just, I think it takes a lot to kind of be able to pull that off successfully. And he does.
Like they make him feel like two separate characters.
Absolutely.
Like you totally can tell that he is not the president because of the way, like, what was the 3 scenes we get with the actual president compared to Dave. I mean, they do enough to establish that he is playing two separate roles and that these roles are not the same, even though he's trying to play the same person playing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But even when he's giving a speech, like in front of Congress or whatever. Yeah, he's kind of overplaying the gestures and stuff, so it works perfect.
Yeah, it's and like Brian said, like comfort food. It's one of those '90s movies that you got a charming cast of people. You know, you always have like most political kind of films, you got like the dickhead. You know, this time played by Frank Langella, and then you got the people supporting him around him. Like I said, Ving Rhames has got some great little moments in here. Sigourney Weaver is really solid, and Kevin Dunn. I don't think Kevin Dunn gets a lot of credit. I think Kevin Dunn's actually a lot better than a lot of people give him credit for. He pops up, and I'm like.
He pops up in a ton of stuff. And
it's like to the point where it's like, all right, Kevin Dunn, nice. But yeah.
What I always remember is Stir of Echoes because he's in it, but there's a character in the movie called Kevin Dunn, not played by him. It's very strange. I
can only imagine what it would have been like on set.
On the set. Kevin Dunn, what? No, him. Oh.
Not you, the fake one. God, Kevin. It's like, if that wasn't a joke on set, then they failed miserably on that, because that is totally a joke they should have been playing. But yeah, Dave is a fun. They don't really make fun president movies anymore, and I think that's just because of the climate we're in now. Like, I'm trying to think of when the last fun president would.
Well, that's when I was watching this movie, I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking
with Chris Rock. Was that the last one?
Oof, I don't know.
God, that was a while ago.
It could have been, but I mean, it seemed like there's this area with this and American President, some of those, where the office of president was still kind of this, esteemed office, and it was not full of controversy, and it was looked at, as hopeful, like it kind of the whole West Wing era. That came after American President, kind of led into West Wing with Aaron Sorkin. But then, we hit the last, I don't know what, 10 years, 15 years.
Where either the president was the real life president going on at the time, which they never actually showed, or it was just someone that was very just president-like, but not important enough for the role. Like X-Men United last week, they had a president in the movie, but he was just generic.
He was just there, yeah. I can't really think of recent films about presidents.
Head of State is the last one, and that was early 2000s. I really cannot. He's as he's looking it up. But
I am. You talk while I look it up.
Yeah, but no, but it's like I said, Kevin Kline. I mean, like I said, the only other Kevin Kline movie that we haven't talked about Fish Called Wanda. But the only other one that really, to me, stands out, obviously, is In and Out. Where he's the teacher who gets outed as gay and he's not gay, and then and then stuff happens. But I mean, that's got a great cast too. It's like, you guys have never really watched Kevin Kline before. He is a joy to watch. He's a very, very toned down Robin Williams, without all the impersonations.
I can see that. Yeah.
If you want kind of a very toned down Robin Williams without all the antics, but still funny and charming, you got Kevin Kline. And he's a joy to watch. Like you said, Sigourney Weaver, she's got her comedies. Like I said, most people obviously pick Ghostbusters and stuff like that, but she's got great moments. I don't think she's really necessarily funny in this. She's just straight up supporting, but she's still enjoyable in the movie.
The other one I want to throw into Kevin Kline talking about is comedies. Like I said, we talked about Fish Called Wanda and that. Well, there's two. Pirates of Penzance, if you like musicals, though. It's a very musical.
I've never seen that.
But he's a ton of fun. He actually played that on stage and he reprised it for the film. And he does a phenomenal job in that movie. But it's an acquired taste. But Soap Dish is a movie not a lot of people have heard of. Soap Dish is a movie that takes place like behind the scenes of a soap opera. It's got Kevin Kline, Robert Downey Jr., Elizabeth Shue, Whoopi Goldberg, Sally Field. This is a huge cast of people, and that is a very fun movie.
I have never seen it, but that cast makes me want to see it.
Yeah, definitely.
Have I filibustered enough for you to find a more recent?
Oh no, because I started talking. I can't really find. I mean, there's been like biopics and things like W and things like that, but I can't find presidential like comedies recent.
Wow, man, that's an untapped market. They need to kind of go back to that.
They really should.
They really should go back to that.
The problem is it's hard to make a a wacky satire of presidency when the presidency has kind of been its own satire.
Well, not even a wacky, like something along the lines of like a Dave kind of thing, where you're not saying copy the same formula, but like have a presidential person who becomes president that's like a super nice guy and like gets thrown into it. Like, I don't know, something like that. But Dave is it on anything streaming?
I don't believe so. No.
You
can rent it everywhere, but it's not free anywhere right now.
Yeah, I believe I had to rent it to watch it, but it was definitely a $2-3 rental that I was proud to pay because, like I said, it's fun, it's delightful, it's a nice, charming comedy, a feel good comedy. Like you don't have to really. It's not gut busting funny, but it's nice. It's a nice. 40-minute movie or not 40-minute hour
40-minute movie. Wow.
Yeah, hour 40-minute movie to watch. Moving on to our featured film. Oh, this featured film. What can we say about this featured film that hasn't been said a million times over? This is just a movie that Brian and I both just love so much, but it's so loved by everybody for the most part. Either people think it's overrated or they love it. I don't think anyone just outright hates the movie unless they just want to be a troll.
But I'm aware of.
Yeah, this movie is just a blast to watch, and it's just so much fun. And that is the 1997 sci-fi action film, The Fifth Element. The Fifth Element came out May 9th, 1997, had a budget of $90 million, had a weekend opening of $17.03 million. It's number one its opening weekend, spent 2 weeks at the number one spot, had a finished box office of $263.9 million, $63.82 million domestic, $200.1 million international.
Wow, yeah, I didn't know about that.
Oh yeah, international was really where it sold its money. I feel like this movie, like obviously $63.82 million domestic is not big, in terms of the time that it was out. I think like this is more become kind of a cult sci-fi film, kind of like same thing with Galaxy Quest. Where maybe didn't do that well in the theaters, but it has grew to like this larger than life. Well,
what's funny is when this movie came out. Okay, now I considered myself. I mean, I worked for a movie store basically for.
Oh, really? You haven't mentioned that.
I haven't mentioned. Well, no, just it applies here. It applies here, like for the whole like 90s. So I only mentioned it here because I was very aware of most everything going on kind of in the movie sphere. Yeah, is all I'm saying. And this movie, I remember went to the theater and saw a teaser poster for it. There was no stars, names, or anything. It just said The Fifth Element, and it had like the 5 like lines on it. And I'm like, I have no idea what the hell this movie is. And this is essentially before the internet release. You couldn't even like really research stuff very much. You couldn't do anything.
Right around the internet startup.
And then it's kind of just starting out. And then I remember when the first trailer came out, I saw this, and this is a movie that I had not heard a peep about. Nobody knew what this movie was. And then the trailer came out. I'm like, oh, Bruce Willis. I mean, come on. I love the Die Hard movies. He's coming off of I think he just done Die Hard 2 years earlier, I guess. And, obviously he's been having a great career. And Gary Oldman, of course, is good. And Luc Besson was coming off of The Professional, which, of course, phenomenal film. It's kind of his big breakthrough in America. Leon is it?
I was going to say, you want to actually say it right?
Well, no, because it was released as The Professional. Yeah, they later have retitled it Leon the Professional, usually only referring to the director's cut. But anyway, but he was coming off of that. That was kind of his U.S. breakthrough. So I was very interested in this movie, and I was not disappointed because it was It's weird. It's
Oh, it's
absolutely
definitely a
weird.
weird movie.
I mean, some of the choices like they have like those robots are clearly just like
Well, yeah,
minion suit kind of things.
the first like 5-10 minutes of the movie is an entirely different film.
It's Luke Perry and Ian Holm at the pyramids or whatever
Oh
it was.
yeah, when you're watching like, oh, it's a Luke Perry movie, because Luke Perry, like, it's height of Luke Perry. Like, actually no, I think it's like near the end of Luke Perry, because like now 210's like ending, and like Buffy came out, and like this thing is like, is that Luke Perry? That is Luke Perry. And then, yeah, you have the weird robot guys. You're like, what is this? And then we jump to, I mean, the future.
They jumped like Bruce Willis and of course Lilu, played by Mia Jovovich, who I think is just a great character.
Oh, fantastic.
I love it. I mean, like I said, this is a weird movie, and you got to buy it, but I buy in 100%. I love the weirdness of the world they created, everything from Lilu and her language and everything, all the way to the creatures. Now, some of the creatures and things, I think they went a little over the top and weird.
I don't.
And
Creatures.
And then there's Ruby Rod.
I'd say this. I will say this. If this movie did not have Ruby Rod, this movie wouldn't have been as good as it was. It will still be fine. Chris Tucker's Ruby makes this entire film.
Well, which is funny because Ruby Rod was supposed to be played by Prince.
It would have been funny then.
They clearly, I mean, they wanted Prince to do it, and I think at one point he actually agreed to it. I'm not sure if that's part's kind of if you have heard different stories, but anyway, he ended up not doing it. And so they clearly got Chris Tucker and said, "Hey, we want you to play Prince." But he did it like Prince like turned up to like 30. He went past 10 to
you
30.
And Prince, but as a radio host.
It's like a caricature of it. Yeah, it's and it works for me. There are some people who hate him in this movie, and I totally get it. I don't understand
how he's so good in this movie.
I get it because he's obnoxious, and if you're not into that aspect of the movie, but for me, I really enjoyed it. Thought he was a lot of fun. Of course, Bruce Willis. This is back when Bruce Willis actually cared and actually acted in his movies. I thought he did a phenomenal job because he was kind of still playing John McClane, but it was new enough, different enough that it wasn't John McClane.
It's more like a retired John McClane who's a taxi driver. Yeah. That's basically what he's playing in this movie.
Yeah, but then, and then, like I said, I already talked about Mila Jovovich, who I thought was phenomenal in this movie. I still think it's probably one of the best things she's done. But yeah, this is just a fun movie beginning to end, and except for one weird long opera scene in the middle, I think I enjoyed it.
No, that was great.
But it went on so long. It's like we don't need to see an entire song performance in this weird Twilight opera, whatever it is.
No, you have Lilu fighting during it.
Eventually, but
no, that opera scene is fantastic, and that is one of the hardest songs in the world to sing. A lot of opera singers can't even hit that song. Like that is one of the hardest songs ever to sing. But no, I love that opera scene. That scene's fantastic. And then we get because when a lot of people think of Fifth Element, like if you go to someone, you're like, tell me what your favorite part of Fifth Element is. It is, for the most part, it is from the opera sequence to the end of the movie. That is the sweet spot because it's when he goes to Florence Paradise and you have him and Ruby and like he won't talk and Ruby's like, he's getting so mad. And then you have the opera scene and that's when everything goes crazy. And that's when you get the awesome team up of Chris Tucker and Bruce Willis.
I enjoy the whole movie. I will say my favorite part is the earlier half of the movie, but that's just me.
No, see, to me, my favorite is opera scene is peak Fifth Element. To me, the one person that I feel like doesn't feel out of place, but just like was underutilized is Oldman. Because you're thinking like he's gonna be the big bad. He's not the big bad. The big bad's a giant fucking like planet thing, and he's like the guy who's doing the dirty work for the planet, and you just feel like there should have been more of Oldman in this movie. Like he just kind of gets taken out relatively easily. Like, and
he was a little odd too. I mean, he was kind of using a weird accent, and of course, he had the weird look to him and stuff like that.
And like he would like bleed, but it didn't look like blood. It looked more like jam, like kind of thing, like black thing. Like I never understood that, but I still to this day don't really get it. But Oldman I feel like Oldman could have really kind of done a whole lot more in this. That was probably the director's decision. Maybe there's cutting room floor. There's a lot more of Oldman in the movie. They just didn't make it in. But for as great as Gary Oldman is, I feel like he was totally underutilized in this film.
Yeah, and of course, this was Luc Besson going back to Oldman again after using him in
exactly
in Leon Professional.
Which he's great in Leon the Professional. So
he's phenomenal in that movie.
And then I also quick little shout out to my boy, the late, the great Tiny or Tom Lister, but everyone knows him as Tiny Lister, aka Zeus, as the president. I loved him in this movie, especially at the end when he picks up the phone of Bruce Willis's mom. He's just like, "Get this thing away from me!" A lot of people know him as obviously Zeus for pro wrestling, or No Holds Barred, or Friday. I love him in this movie. He's one guy. He just shows up, does his lines, and gets out. Like, he doesn't overstay his welcome. I love Tiny Lister in this. But yeah, go ahead with what you were gonna say.
Well, I was going to say that this is an example, this is 2 years before Mummy, 7 years before Van Helsing. The special effects in this movie are so much better. I mean, even just when they're
practical, it's practical effects. All the aliens are costumes.
Well, that's just the thing is okay. There's it's clearly like the CGI effects and things like when there's they show a whole city with thousands of flying cars and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's all done so well, and the laser blast explosions, all that kind of stuff, done excellent. When they start doing explosions and stuff, it's all practical. The aliens, there's aliens in this. I forget what the race is called.
I forgot too.
But they're clearly men in rubber suits, clearly. And of course, we talked about the robots are clearly people in suits. But you buy it. You're like, okay, I get it. It works here. They would have been better off using suits like that in Van Helsing than trying to use CGI where it didn't work. That's right.
Mangalores.
But it's 7 years before Van Helsing, and it still was far more convincing.
I love the end when they're in the tomb. Was it the tomb or the pyramid or whatever? And they got to figure out how to, light everything, and get the whole love deal. That's cool, but it all makes sense, because they built the story up between Corbin and Lilu for it to make sense till we get to that Neville. And I just think this was a very well done story. Weird shit, obviously, some choices that you probably could have done without, and changed a little bit. But I think the core story, basically the story of Corbin, Lilu, and Ruby, I think is done great. I think, like I said, Gary Oldman could have been used a little bit more. The Mangalores were great cannon fodder for Bruce Willis to go Bruce Willis on. I mean, bring someone to negotiate. Anyone else want to negotiate? Where did he learn to do stuff like that? There's so many great lines. Come in, man, come in. It's just, there's so many great little moments of this, especially the one where he's count to 10, and he's in the scream the whole way through as he's screaming while counting down. There's so, and when he ends and he's like, "That was the greatest show of my life." And they pick the things there's so many great there's so many great moments of this movie. The action's fun. It's like you said, the special effects look great. I love this movie. I've seen this movie way too many times that I care to admit. But like I said with The Mummy, whenever Fifth Element's on, the TV stops.
Oh yeah.
You're watching Fifth Element.
I own this movie in 5 different formats, but I'll sit there and watch the TV just because I passed it by.
I haven't bought it on UHD yet, but you bet your ass I'm buying it on UHD for my 4K TV. And when we eventually go to 8K and 16K or whatever the hell they're gonna do, I'm gonna get the Fifth Element in this one as well. Because why? Because the Fifth Element is fucking awesome. It is the Scott Pilgrim of sci-fi movies. And like I said, Chris Tucker, Chris Tucker was in Friday and stuff like that. To me, Fifth Element was the movie that made Chris Tucker for me. Because he went on to Rush Hour after that. Like I said, he was great in Friday. But Ruby Rod to me is my Chris Tucker. And I don't find him annoying. I think he's the perfect mix of annoying / funny. I
personally don't find him annoying either. I would say I understand why some people would.
I mean, but it's his comedy that just it mixes so well with the rest of the film, And then of course another great line is when he's like, when he has he's like, "No, I'm a meat popsicle." Even the guy who was trying to rob him, where he had the hallway as a hat. to try to. That's clever. That was super clever.
Like, the guy pulls together, he's like doing that weird little dance.
Yes, there's so many great little moments. Multipass. Like there's you
You can do a multipass.
Yes, you can pick out 1,000 things. Like when Ruby's hooking up with the flight stewardess and the upright positions and the legs go. And his hat, his hair is like, oh, there's so many. We can keep talking about Fifth Element for a whole other hour, but we're gonna move on. Fifth Element, is it on any streaming services?
No, it's on AMC Plus, which I don't know anybody who subscribes to that. So other than that, no.
I mean, let's put it this way: you should have the disc, whether it be DVD, Blu-ray, VHS, UHD. You should have Fifth Element if you don't have it already, and if you don't, and you don't like Fifth Element, I don't know what to do with you.
Don't watch our show. Go away.
Yeah, exactly. Because The Fifth Element is one of my favorite sci-fi films. You know, but we're moving on to our
his other favorite sci-fi film.
Oh, wait, sorry. Shut the fuck up. We're going to our stinker again. We're gonna end this week with the stinker because let's just face it, it's the stuff we have the most to talk about. Yeah, this movie. Last week, I teased it like crazy that I've never wanted to punch a kid in the face more. Now,
I still have a headache from watching it.
Yeah, well, I have a migraine from watching it. Now, to save myself from last week, the kid was 13 years old when he filmed this. He was a teenager, but God, I want to do damage to this kid. I want to punch him in the face. There's only 2 kids that I've ever wanted to just physically just punch in the face so hard. This kid from this movie and the punk bitch from 2.5 Men, the little guy. I can't remember what his name. I mean, he's an adult now, but God, that kid,
Angus something.
Angus, like even his name, I want to punch. Just such a douchebag. And then this kid, this movie. I remember Brian and I when we said, "Well, this is the stinker, right?" We both went, "Oh no, we got to watch this again." I was trying. Outside of the kid, I was trying to be optimistic about this film. Like, maybe it's not as bad as we remember. The cast outside of the kid is actually not bad at all. And then we had to watch it. And not only is it as bad as we remember, but I think Brian and I are both smarter now when it comes to movies than we were when it first came out. So it's even worse than it was. Yeah. And that is the 2008 anime, comic book, whatever you want to call it. But anyway, the shit fest known as Speed Racer. Speed Racer came out May 9th, 2008, had a budget of $120 million, had a weekend opening of $18.56 million, was number 3 its opening weekend behind Iron Man in its second week, and What Happens in Vegas in its first week. Finished with a box office of $93.94 million, $43.94 million domestic, and $50 million international. Now, I was never a Speed Racer fan. I didn't watch the cartoons when I was a kid. I knew of the cartoons. I never watched them. But, yeah, this movie, directed by the Wachowskis, or Wachowskis, however you want to say their name. Wachowskis? It's Wachowskis.
Wachowskis, I believe, yeah. Who
also, we've already done a stinker of this already with Jupiter Ascending. This is, I think, the second time now that we've had the director pop up twice in stinkers. Yeah, this movie... Brian. Okay, hold on. Before we go to you, Brian. So, yes, the kid. The fucking kid. What's his goddamn name? Peyton something. Where's his name? I'm looking for him. Where is he? Help me out, Brian. Where the fuck is this kid's name?
I'm looking. I don't know which character.
Paulie Litt, who plays Spritle Racer. And Brian, you could admit, if you took this kid out of the movie and just had the monkey, it would not be, I mean, it's still bad, but it wouldn't be nearly as bad. This kid is, and I know Speed Racer has a little brother, blah, 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 blah. I don't care. This kid's acting and the director's decisions to force him in your face throughout the film is one of the worst decisions this movie could have made. I believe we said it when the third act, there was an actual moment that was earned for the characters. And we're like, this is an earned moment. And they throw the kid up. They
screech it to a halt. They screech to a halt to put him in there.
And do a joke that is only funny to children and ruin the moment. And I just want to, oh my God, I want to punch this kid so hard in the face. And his career effectively, for the most part, ended after this movie, thank God. But yeah, fuck that kid. That kid is horrible. But yeah, Brian, you have so much more hatred towards this film that I don't like it, but you loathe this movie.
I loathe this movie. This is one of those movies that I didn't like the first time I saw it. I thought it was a horrible movie.
I didn't like it the first time I saw it either.
But it's one of those movies that I actually grow to hate more because people talk about how great it is. And I'm like, what the fuck movie did you watch? Because you did not watch the same movie I watched. Now, this is a movie that...
This is the opposite. This is the opposite of last week where we were defending Age of Ultron and everyone hated it. We're like, did we watch the same movie? Now we're the guys that hate it. Everyone else that loves it. Like, no, you guys suck.
Because this movie, here's the problem with this movie. This movie is based on a TV show from, what, the 60s? I'm not even sure of the timeline on it. 60s, 70s, something like that.
I'll look it up.
So it's based on this TV show, this kind of, I guess you call it anime.
It is anime.
Yeah, so I mean, so I assume they're looking for people that have nostalgia for it and watch, because they clearly, there's so much of the movie is trying to mirror the TV show exactly. Like it's slavish. It's slavishly devoted to having the same transitions of people's heads constantly floating across the screen and the motion blur lines and everything. It's just the style of it is absolutely trying to copy the original show. The problem is that this movie is completely geared towards, like, I don't know, 6-year-old kids
or diehard fans of the show
who have no clue what the show is.
No.
So, but I mean, with the kid and the parts they show, like when they shove him into the end scene, it's because 6-year-old kids don't want to see people kiss. So, let's make a joke about, you don't want to watch this because of cooties.
Cooties, yeah.
You got the monkey in there. You have all this childish humor. You have. So it's and of course the races, which okay, this movie is essentially the race scenes are essentially Hot Wheels come to life, and that part of it could be awesome. I mean,
there are some awesome moments.
Granted, the laws of physics don't apply to this. People would have died 12,000 times. The whole rules of the game, who the fuck knows what's going on? But as far as just watching cars on weird ramps and shaped tracks, and they got cool weapons
and spinning
like this. I mean, yes, it's overboard and headache-inducing in the style and the color, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Seizure-inducing.
But at least the races of it could be entertaining to a kid, because it is absolutely Hot Wheels come to life. I mean, my kid, when he was about that age, watched this and loved those scenes in this movie. Of course, anytime it wasn't in a race movie, he was bored to shit, because everything in between is just exposition and stuff that's going to bore the kids. So they had to pad out their 2 hours and 15-minute runtime.
Yeah, there's literally a scene we were talking about it. Like the first 20 minutes is the kind of the introduction to him as a kid with his brother, and it's a race scene. Like 2 race scenes happen at the same time. It's like, all right, it's quick, like most of the movie is, and then that ends, and then we get 20 plus minutes of just talking to the point where I described it as, this is the architect scene for Matrix Reloaded.
It really was.
Where it's it's Speed Racer talking to what's the character's name? It's the main bad guy of the movie. It starts with an R. I don't care. I really don't care enough. But he's like the guy who wants to buy Speed Racer, and Speed Racer turns him down. And then we get this erroneously long, just monologue from this guy about what racing really is and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, at one point we're halfway through it. I'm like, is he still going?
Did you back up the movie, Brian? Why am I so watching this?
No one cares what is being talked about right now. And Emil Hirsch is just having to stand there the entire time going.
And I'm just we like Emil Hirsch.
We do.
I remember I compared this movie to, we talked about Mordecai was a previous stinker of ours. I think one of the first weeks we did. And this was another one of those movies which is when bad movies happen to good cast. Yeah. Because John Goodman, Emil Hirsch, Susan Sarandon, Christina Ricci, who I'm sorry, but why hasn't she ever played Susan Sarandon's daughter? Because they look so much alike.
That was the creep. Yeah, we had so much fun with this. We're Trixie is the girlfriend of Speed Racer. Speed Racer obviously is the son to Susan Sarandon and John Goodman. but Susan Sarandon and Christina Ricci look like mother and daughter. Literally,
Absolutely.
the only and even Sprite old little douchebag fucker looks like John Goodman. The only person who doesn't look like they're a part of this family is Emil Hirsch as Speed Racer. They should have just.
And Trixie's not in the family, so
Trixie's
apparently
not
he
in the
wants to bang
family.
his mom. So
Yes, I just like he's effectively having sex with his mom. And Brian was like,
they say that people like to
true.
marry their mother. Apparently he wants to.
Yes, Susan Sarandon and Christina Ricci. I never realized how much they look like till this movie.
But these are all good actors, and they've all made so many good movies. And I guess I don't blame them for wanting to be in this because I mean, hey, these guys made The Matrix. These are great directors. You know, it's a family film. So if you have kids, you know, if these actors have kids or something, they can go watch these movies. But it's just like this movie is it's not good at all. It's
not.
Anyway, I'll let you talk about the visual style.
I mean, like I said, it's seizure inducing. Everything. The colors are, and Brian, you described it. It's like if you go into a showroom and you turn every color level to 100%, to the point where
like when they're trying to show off the TVs, they turn all the contrast and color way up to like looks really good in the showroom.
Which I worked for Best Buy for like 10 years, and we had this thing called a calibration display where and everyone's like, no one cares about this shit, but I don't care what we're talking about because it's our fucking show. A calibration display where we show a TV that's set to show settings, which is colors are ridiculously over the top because they're trying to draw you in to look at the picture. And then the way the TV should be set to a more natural color tone. So that way the TV lasts longer, it's less strain on your eyes, and it's just an overall better experience. Yeah. I used Speed Racer. Literally, no fucking joke. Hand to God. I used Speed Racer as an example of the wrong way
not to do. Yeah.
And what it should look like with it being calibrated. And even at calibrated, it was still fucking ridiculous. Speed Racer literally was my example of the wrong way.
It was so funny because I brought up the idea of the TVs, not knowing that you had done that. And you're like, no shit, I use this movie as a what not to do.
I used Speed Racer. I used Speed Racer as a calibration of the wrong way, and I used the jailbreak scene of Kung Fu Panda 1 for the perfect surround sound scene.
Yeah.
And I sold like a mother. But still, the color is so ridiculously over the top, and it's like speeding through stuff behind you. So it's like you're trying to focus on the character in front of you because they're this close to the fucking screen.
Well, they have to because every single scene they're in front of green screen.
Green screen, yeah.
Every single scene, even if they're just sitting in the kitchen.
I told Brian, I was like, we should have a stopwatch. And we should start the clock when we see a scene that's not green screen and see how much of this actual movie is not green screen. Now, yes, you could say, Sean.
My thumb doesn't work fast enough to stop it again.
No, exactly. I get that. You go, Sean, the MCU is mostly green screen. Yes, but when they're in a fucking house or in a building talking, that is a building. That is a house. It's not like, I think we were in Speed Racer's bedroom? We were like, it doesn't even look like he's in a bedroom. It looks like he's against a screen that looks like a bedroom. Like I think the only reason we figured out that it was an actual room was because of the shading of a poster in the room. Yeah, and it's just
because even when it was real, it looked fake, and it didn't help that every scene they have, like especially the race scenes, or even not in race scenes, in conversations, they'd have people's heads floating across and turning the whole time.
Yeah, it's like
oh god,
every transition was a face going across screen to transition.
There were scenes where it's like four different faces, face. And I'm like, oh my god.
And it's not even main characters; it's usually like the announcers, and it's just like you don't have to do that. Like I was surprised that they didn't do like the whole like spin them upside down kind of thing. Like that's the one thing they were missing out of this. But it's just like, and like I think it was like in the third act, like the final race. At one point, I was like, it was just so much like color and craziness happening. I was like, Brian, do you even know what's happening right now? Not because we weren't paying attention. It wasn't because we weren't paying attention.
We were watching the movie.
I couldn't decipher what I was watching because the cars were spinning so much and glass was breaking around them and there was so much special effects shit happening around. I was like, I physically cannot tell what is happening right now.
Just like you use this as an example of what not to do with color and stuff like that. What not to do with just CGI overkill. Because, I mean, everything in this movie, the cars are obviously CGI 99% of the time, and there's no physics to them. They're bouncing on it. First of all, these cars don't ever take any damage either. I mean, they're knocking each other and practically killing each other using weapons, and they maybe have a little scuffed paint at the end. But these things would fly around, and there's so many different things going on at one time that you're like, I have no clue what's going on.
Like, what are the rules to this?
And
like,
I don't care.
At the beginning, they were like, they called like Speed Racer's brother, like a dirty player. But like the whole last half of the film, like all this is dirty. Everything about this is dirty.
And then in the whole movie, they're like using all kinds of weird like weapons and devices on each other and stuff like this. And then in the last scene, they use what is the most banal weapon.
It's like a spear hook.
It's a spear hook, they call it, which basically connects the two cars. But that's like the least dangerous or offensive thing they could have used in the entire movie, and that's the one that's illegal. I don't.
That's cheating. Oh, he just lost the Hall of Fame with that one.
You've been trying to kill each other the entire movie.
Just been like flinging cars off to people, like to the point where they turn into little soap balls, like to protect him and shit. It's like, but he's okay. Like they're all doing messed up shit. Like one person had like saws. No, that was Speed Racer who had the saws. But like, and there was like the one part where it was like, what was it? They're in the desert and like the spiral thing tried to take out his tires and like he had a shield and they were all like fighting. Like, and I was like, during that desert scene, I was like, this makes the pod racer scene in episode 1 look like a masterpiece. Because it's so, like, it didn't even look real. Like, it looked like like we said Beast Wars, the Transformers Beast Wars show. It looked like 2D animation that just looked like it was, like, honestly, from back in, like, what was it, like, 90s? It was, like, Beast Wars was out? It was, like, that whole desert sequence. Yeah. Like, it looked just like bad 2D animation. And, like, you can say, oh, it looked great. No, it just looked really, really colorful. It was incredibly colorful. But that doesn't make the CG look good. And
I will say, like I said, my kid enjoyed the hell out of those race scenes, and I get that. If they marketed this as this a kids movie and it wasn't for the adults going, oh, this is great for people of any age. No, it's not. Because my kid loved those race scenes. But the problem is there was too much other bullshit in it that made him be bored, which is why I've actually seen this movie a couple times. Luckily not all the way through, except for the original time and when I watched it for this. But I've seen certain scenes of it many, many times because my kid watched the hell out of it. They made a PlayStation 2 video game out of this, which is you get to play those races, and that is 1,000 times more fun than watching any of this movie.
I mean, I basically said very earlier, this is basically Mario Kart meets Twisted Metal.
It is.
And we were like, yeah. I was like, that sounds like a great potential movie. Not this one, but yeah. Like, it sounds like a good, awesome potential.
Yeah, if they had just stuck with the races more, it'd been fine. But they wanted to explore so much
into the whole conspiracy thing,
and the whole thing with the brother, which whatever. Don't get me started on that.
Yeah, Rex Racer or Racer X, where he's like, "You're my brother, aren't you?" No, I'm not your brother, but you really are your brother. But we're not gonna let him know he's your brother. But why? Why is that even necessary? Why is that even a point in this film?
Were they holding out for a sequel that wasn't going to come? I don't know.
I think that's exactly what they're doing. I think they were.
They weren't going to get one because I mean the Wachowskis to me, they did. Bound was okay. The Matrix was obviously great. The Matrix sequels, I don't completely hate. There are things about them I like, but they're huge.
Okay, but compared to the first one, they're a massive letdown.
But they really haven't done anything great since the original Matrix. I mean, what have they even done since then? This Jupiter Cloud Ascending. Atlas and Jupiter Ascending, which was that a stinker? Or was that just we talked about that one, right?
No, that was a stinker.
Was it a stinker? Okay.
Yeah, it was a stinker.
It was a stinker that which wasn't completely awful, but it wasn't good.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and that was the other thing too. That one point that just bugged us was like during these races, it's like clearly only Speed Racer is the only good racer out there because like he would crash or stop his car, have a 5 to 10 minute fight scene, and then the other cars would show up. And it's like, that's not how racing works.
They literally pulled over. And I remember Sean at one point we said, Are they still racing? Over? Is the race over? We're like, no.
And then all of a sudden, like, they finish the fight scene. It's like, oh no, here come the other cars. It's like, they are now just showing up.
And then later on, his car gets knocked off, and like apparently some part isn't working. Yeah. And he sits there and thinks about it for like 5 minutes straight, going, how can I get the car again? And then, meanwhile, every single car in the race has passed him by 5 minutes earlier, but apparently he can jump back on the track and get. So how did he not win the race 20 minutes earlier?
Exactly. It was just, And then, like, then you have the mobsters, where it's like, did we just jump into Dick Tracy?
Oh.
And you were like, no.
Put a little bit of worse makeup on him, and you'd have Dick Tracy, absolutely.
Yeah, because I was like, the whole time, it's like, yeah, this mafia boss with the piranhas, and like all his boys are in different colored suits. I'm like, this is Dick Tracy at this point, but not. And you're like, no, it's not that bad. I was like, no, it's worse. Yeah, there's so much more wrong with this movie. I remember when it first came out, and I just watched the trailer and I watched the movie. I remember watching this in a theater, And someone goes, "How was it?" And I was like, "Did you ever see Raiders of the Lost Ark when the Nazi guy?" Well, let me finish.
This one's better. No,
you're about to get really upset. And you're gonna love what I say. You ever seen Raiders of the Lost Ark when the Nazi guy opens the Ark and his face melts off? That's what it's like watching this movie, because the colors are so psychedelically in your face that your eyeballs melt out of your face because it's burning you with the ridiculousness of the colors that you either get a migraine or you're going to need an eye check by the time this movie's over. But the only way I can describe it is the Nazi opening the Ark in Raiders, where his face melts off. That's what Speed Racer is. That sounds like a cool option.
That or in Scanners when his head just explodes.
Yeah, it's like, if that sounds like a fun time from a movie for you, have fun. But in terms of a story, I told Brian, it's the only character or the only performance that I felt was believable through this movie was Susan Sarandon. Because at the end, when Speed Racer's going through like the best race of his life, and he's blowing everyone away, which he shouldn't have been able to do because he stopped this racing for like 5 fucking minutes at the end. But still, like, all the emotions, I was buying Susan Sarandon here, like being overly proud, overly joyed with her because that's her son and stuff like that. And then the fucking kid shows up and just ruins the whole goddamn thing because fucking Spritle. God, I'll punch that kid in the face. If I swear to God, if that kid was in front of me right now, I'd punch him in the face. I've never punched a person first. I would wait for them to punch me, but that kid, I will punch in the face right now.
Sean is prone to,
What was my reaction every time that kid popped on screen? Every
pretty much what you just did there. Fucking punch that kid in the face.
That or
yeah. I was going to say Sean is prone to hyperbole, but in this case, he's not exaggerating. That kid deserves to get punched in the face.
Yeah, that kid deserves to get punched in the face at least once. At least one good punch in the face. I'm not going to beat the crap out of him. Just let me get one hit. Let me just get one fucking hit. Yeah, Speed Racer. Like I said, we could keep bashing this movie, and I know there's going to be a lot of people like, oh, Speed Racer is amazing. No, it's not. It's not. It really isn't. I don't know what movie you guys just saw, but it is not this movie.
The only thing I can possibly understand is if you were a huge fan as a kid and you watched the show, this did its best to directly translate to this, and I guess more power to you. But for me, who like Sean, I did not watch the show. I knew of the show. I'd seen clips of the show, but I never, as far as I know, watched a full episode of it. This failed on every level for me.
Yeah, and like I said, we like John Goodman, we like Susan Sarandon, we like Christina Ricci, we like Emile Hirsch. We felt bad for them because it's not necessarily their performances. None of their performances are really bad in this movie. It's the choices that the directors made in this film, the color palette, and just the story itself, and the fucking kid. Anyway, Speed Racer, is it on any streaming services? For the love of God, tell me no.
Yes, it's on free with ads on Tubi TV or on Hoopla.
If you guys want to have a migraine so you can call in sick to work the next day, then I strongly suggest watching Speed Racer. If you value your brain and your eyes, don't watch this movie because you'll thank me for it later. And on that note, that is our episode, everybody. We hope you guys enjoyed this very fueled of two stinker episode of the Weekend Crusaders, which you guys tend to really like when we talk about the stinkers. We might just do an all stinker episode one time. Also, there's a time in September that really could happen. I think we were going to take a week off. We might just do a sneaker-filled episode. I haven't decided yet. But if you guys like this episode, hit that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos that pop up on the weekend or the Movie Crusaders. And of course, don't forget to follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Coming up next, still can't think of any movies that are really coming out. Now, granted, last week, like I said, Without Remorse and The Mitchells versus Machines came in. I said I wasn't going to watch it. Obviously, you guys see the trailer or the reviews already out for both those movies. So, like I said, sometimes movies pop up and I decide to review them. Honestly, I think the only movie that's coming out here recently, I think within the next week or so, was an Angelina Jolie firefighter movie. But that's like on the 14th. So that's literally like next Friday.
Yeah, I don't even have the schedule here in front of me right now.
Yeah, I can't think of anything. But we will be back next Friday with another 5 movies that come out during the week of, I believe it's May 14th through the 16th.
Oh, Wrath of Man is this weekend, by the way. That's the Jason Statham, Guy Ritchie movie.
But you know me with Guy Ritchie. I don't watch Guy Ritchie movies. I don't like Guy Ritchie. You can ask me about that later. But we have 5 more movies coming out. We have one that's pretty much, I would say, like Fifth Element, that for the most part, everyone either loves it to death or hates it out of being a troll, for the most part. Then you have, I would say, an 80s classic that has a sequel coming out this year. You've got a war epic that Brian and I both love, but gets hated on quite a bit, but we both love this movie. We got a rom-com that Brian has never seen that I have, that I figured I chose between this and another film. I was like, you know what? Let's go with the one that most people haven't heard of. Hopefully I made the right choice. And then we've got a stinker that Brian and I are going to have to drink like 6 Red Bulls before we watch this thing, because it's going to be really, really hard for us to make it through this without falling asleep.
And I told Sean, without even joking, I think I've tried to watch this movie twice, and neither time I still don't think I've seen the whole movie. I fell asleep.
I told Brian the one time I watched this movie was in a movie theater with my dad, who is a fan of these kind of films, and I fell asleep. I don't fall asleep watching movies in theaters. I fell asleep in the 3rd act, woke up, did not know what was going on, looked up at my dad, and he was also asleep. So we're going to try to watch that this week for the stinker. So be on the lookout for those. Figure out what those movies are. Until next time, I'm Sean Wasserkrug. That's Brian Michaels. We are the Weekend Crusaders. And until next time, in case we don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders.
You're still here? It's over. Go home.